Hello, my name is John, and today I'm speaking on behalf of Carbohydrates. As a famous center-left-leaning Republican vegan communist activist who would also kill for a juicy steak, I want you to vote for Carbohydrates. We all know what's happening in the horrible world of politics, and by voting for Carbohydrates, you too can entirely end the hatred in the world. Doesn't that sound great? Now, what exactly do carbohydrates stand for? Well, to start, carbohydrates are made up of monosaccharides. The word monosaccharides derives from the Greek words mono, meaning single, and saccharine, meaning sugar. These monosaccharides are made up of the functional groups hydroxyl and carboxyl. Hydroxyl is made up of one oxygen atom bonded to a hydrogen atom, and carboxyl is made up of one oxygen atom bonded to a carbon atom, which is bonded to a hydroxyl group. When you vote for carbohydrates, know that you'll be getting a pretty sweet deal. All carbohydrates primarily contain the elements carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Carbohydrates are found in rings. These shapes are reminiscent of rings like onion rings. Wow, onion rings, aren't those great? These rings are made up of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, and are connected to each other via glycosidic linkage, like they're holding hands. Like the Japanese say, it is very kawaii desu. There are a few main groups of carbohydrates. Carbohydrates can be split into simple carbohydrates and complex carbohydrates. Simple carbohydrates contain things like monosaccharides and disaccharides. Monosaccharides, as we've discussed, make up the fundamental part of carbohydrates. They are also used to store energy. As previously mentioned, glucose is a monosaccharide, and it is used as a fuel for cells. Disaccharides are made up of two monosaccharides, and they are important for giving energy as well. Sucrose, a disaccharide, is a sugar that is abundant within things like fruits. Complex carbohydrates include all the other polysaccharides, and these complex carbohydrates include things like cellulose, starch, and glycogen. Cellulose is a major structural material in plants that is made up of chains of glucose locked into tight, sturdy bundles. Starch, like cellulose, is used in plants. Starch stores energy in plants and is found in a spiral pattern. Glycogen is sugar that is found in animals. It is found in highly branched chains. With such diversity as this, who wouldn't want to vote for carbohydrates? In life, carbohydrates are used for a variety of things. Carbohydrates are primarily used for storing energy. Like our former President Trump, cellulose can also build walls. Though instead of on the border, cellulose is used to create walls for plant cells. Starch is used as energy by plants, and this energy may be used in processes such as sprouting. Glycogen is used as energy by animals. When an animal does something such as running, glycogen is used to provide energy for the animal so it can run. Let's say, hypothetically, for the sake of argument, we didn't have access to carbohydrates. Without it, nobody would have the energy to do anything. Many bodily functions would be impaired with the lack of carbohydrates. Imagine not being able to move around, think, or even cast your vote for carbohydrates. Wouldn't that be horrible? You'd probably die a horrible, slow, lonely death. On another note, without fiber, a carbohydrate, excreting waste would probably be incredibly painful. If that still hasn't persuaded you to vote for carbohydrates, here are some incredibly interesting and fun facts that'll make even your grandma think, wow, I should have paid more attention in high school biology. Did you know the brain exclusively uses glucose, a monosaccharide, to function? If you're gearing up to use your brain, you should consume carbohydrates. Also, carbohydrates make up between 2 to 3% of an average person's body mass, so even if you don't end up supporting carbohydrates, you can be rest assured that carbohydrates will always support at least 2 to 3% of you at all times. All in all, carbohydrates are an important part of life. Carbohydrates stand to protect your life. Without it, life probably wouldn't exist as we know it. I hope I've convinced you to vote for carbohydrates today. Remember, don't fall for the radical conspiracy of the lipids, vote for carbohydrates.